Hello, 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 hello. What is up, everybody? You're tuned into the greatest post show on planet Earth. There is no greater post show on this planet than this one. I can guarantee that. Thank you all for joining me. Wow, 230 people watching. Our channel manager, Savannah, said she had an idea to get new people on the show, and I think it worked. So if you're here for the first time, if you were jumped here from Lickman Live, this is the post show hosted by Sam Lichtman, his son. Hello, Isaac Cannon. My Best Life says, hello, friends. Hit that like button for the stream. That would be great. If you're watching, hit that like button. Hello, Secretary of State Andrew. What up, Brennan Ziegler? Let's go, my boy Sammy Licht. That's Joseph Rule. B says it's their first time. So glad to have you. Michael Nightwolf says, Sammy, I'm so grateful to be here. Well, I'm so grateful to have you, Michael. Hello from New Mexico, says Kim D. It's still going. I think people are a little confused. So we set up something, I think, that if you're watching Lichtman Live, it automatically, when that ended, jumped you to this stream. This is the post show. This is on my own channel. So Lichtman Live has ended and the post show has started. And then if you've never been here before, this is the greatest post show ever on planet Earth, just so. Sheldon Hughes says, first time from Winnipeg. Hey, look, USA-Canada is going on right now, so I don't know if I can be friends with you Canadians right now. What's the score? Let's check the score. I'm not the biggest hockey fan, but might as well just see what's going on. USA v. Canada hockey. What's the score? This is 1-1, I think I saw. Oh, it's tied 2-2. All right, 2-2. I normally love Canada, but tonight we're going Team USA all the way. A lot of new people here, so if you haven't been here before, this is the post show. It's a more chill version. You know, we sit back, we relax, we chat. Dwayne Osmond said, Trump knew that the Dems would blow their top after he said, long live the king, right? Yeah, I was talking to this with a friend today, and Savannah, our channel manager. Like, it's a brilliant troll job. I mean, is it absurd and ridiculous? Yes, but from a pure communications and social media standpoint, as my dad ended the show with saying, like, the guy knows how to message. He knows how to take advantage of social media. There's no doubt about that. And his base is like loving that. They're like, the libs are so angry. He called himself king. And like on the surface, right? Like maybe they have a point. Maybe we should chill out. But also like he is acting like a king. And if you are conservative, you are MAGA, you're supposed to not like that. So that's a little concerning. Sam, what are your thoughts on third term project at CPAC? It's a project to allow Trump to be president for 2028, and one of their posters says beyond. I think it's a whole lot of nothing. I would say for now it seems like a whole lot of nothing to me, but I would say I'm starting to get worried about it. And I firmly believe that there will be a lot of powerful people pushing for him to run again in 2028. Do I think it's going to happen? I'm not sure. The reality of him running for president. Do I think people are going to push for it? At this point, it seems pretty clearly yes. James says a third term should not be tolerated. I totally agree. I mean, literally it goes against the very fabric of our nation. So I totally agree. Do you think we have fair elections? Yes. Do I think that there are policies and politicians, especially across the South, that are actively trying to make new laws to make it harder to vote? Also, yes. Michael Nightwolf says, my family is all MAGA and they want President Trump to be able to run for a third term. Well, that's concerning. Kyle Fishman says, a third term, courts won't let it happen. Are you sure? I don't know how much I trust the Supreme Court. We'll see. I mean, there'll be rulings before then where we'll see how loyal they are to Trump or not. Abe says, can you believe it's only been a month? This nightmare feels like a decade has passed. Well, that's because he's like put about a decade amount of executive orders into action. I mean, I think the last biggest president in terms of executive orders was Biden with like 9 or something. Let's see if we can find that total. I mean, just the sheer number of executive orders he's putting through. Yeah, it feels like he's ruling from executive order, which makes the time feel like it's shrunk because this has never happened before. Presidents by executive orders. By number of executive orders. Let's see. This is obviously throughout their tenure, so this isn't very accurate. But I think if you're talking about like the first, X amount of time, first couple of weeks, first month, he's blowing everybody out of the water. They haven't even updated his new one. Captain 752 says JD Vance / DeSantis would be a good ticket. What do you mean by good? A winning ticket? Maybe. Possibly. Michael Nightwolf says, if Congress were to pass a bill, it would be possible for President Trump and others to run 3 terms. That's what I'm saying. It's like someone earlier said, the courts will stop it. It's like, there's a lot at play here. I don't think it's that simple. Colitapal says, Putin is angry that he's losing the war. That's why he worked so hard last year to install sympathetic puppets around the world to make it easier for him to win. Coca-Cola says Congress can't pass a bill to change term limits. It would require an amendment. But don't amendments go through Congress first? Let me fact check myself. How does an amendment get passed? A constitutional amendment. Oh, and then it has to be ratified by legislatures of 3/4 of the states. So 38 states must approve it. Let's see. 2024 presidential election. No, actually, it'll be 2024 governor's map is actually probably more accurate because like places like Pennsylvania and Michigan have Democrats as their governor, but they both voted for Trump. Governor's map by state. So you need 38 states. Yeah, that'll be tough. So there's currently 27 states with Republican governors. I can't imagine. I don't know. But then again, it's legislatures, right? So let's see. State legislators map by state. Let's see if that's state partisan composition. Let's see if this is even possible. Look, this is a good thought experiment, guys. So this is legislature only. How many are there that are red? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. Is it also the same? Is that possible? Did I count that right? So this state has a Dem as a governor and a Republican House. These have, I have to double check. Now I'm blanking out. Let me try to count this again. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. All right, so 27 or 28. So I think it would be hard for this to happen, right? And that's what I'm saying. Like, do I think Trump is actually going to be running for a third term? No. Do I think there's going to be a massive push from it and it's going to get really loud? Yes, absolutely. Tim Makowski says, Thomas and Alito in particular, I don't trust as far as I can throw them. Yeah. VKM says, from what I've seen, it looks like GOP voters assume a few people have to suffer a lot for the U.S. to improve, gun rights, deportation, etc. And Dem voters assume most people have to only suffer a bit. I'm not quite sure if I'm following that logic. Beth Brown says, anyone read Vox? There was a good article there this week about how to stop Trump, written by Zach Beauchamp. He might be a really good and informative guest. Let me check that out. Zach Beauchamp. What was the article called? How to Stop Trump. 8 days ago. Let's see what this guy's got to say. Oh, are you kidding me? Vox is now you have to become a member to read Vox? Since when? I thought Vox was free. That's annoying. Well, I was going to read this article, but not anymore. Thanks a lot, Vox. Pierre Holmes says, Trump came down the golden escalator in 2015. This year marks 10 years, goddammit, since Trump has been dominating our politics as longer than 2 terms presidents who have been in office for only 8 years. That's a frustrating fact. Scott Pearson says, why does it really feel like we have gone down a path of no return at this point? Then again, America has been through some dark times in the past, and I do objectively see the rise of populism globally. I still have hope. I've said this many times. I still have hope. Do I think that even at this point, it's going to take a lot of time and energy to recover, even after Trump, if a sane person comes into the White House after him? Yes. But I do think we will recover. What do you think about the current administration's fast-tracking things to the Supreme Court and laying a base? I think it's a terrible precedent because it just allows, a certain political party to try to appoint partisan judges who are aligned with them and hope that they can just push things to the Supreme Court where they know they have a loyal judge or loyal judges and get stuff done. The tech Nazi oligarch scares me the most. They want to control us with AI. I agree. I saw a really good interview with the former, let me see if I can play it for you guys. The former FTC chairwoman with Ali Velshi, and I think she did a really good job, and they both did a really good job of like laying out why anti-monopoly and just putting checks and balances on these big corporate folks is so important. So I'm gonna play it. No free ads. You know the rules here, folks. No free ads. All right. I think this is a really important, like this is probably the most important video I think I've watched in a while. IMO, that stands for in my opinion.
From the very start of the Trump presidency, as he was sworn in with all the big tech bosses sitting in the front row, it's been absolutely crystal clear why business people have supported Donald Trump. They will choose deregulation over everything. Over democracy, over fairness, over being able to attract workers. Business will choose deregulation over everything. People have been asking me, will the business community stand up to Trump? Zero chance.
No shot. I mean, we've already, I mean, look at this. This picture alone tells you everything you need to know. No shot they're standing up to Trump. In fact, they're going to bend the knee to Trump, the exact opposite.
Why would they? They got the deal they wanted, and so did Trump. As the Wall Street Journal reports yesterday, Trump spent the months before taking office hosting lavish dinners for healthcare executives, raking in hundreds of millions of dollars from them in return for influence. And remember back in May when Trump asked oil executives at Mar-a-Lago for a $1 billion donation while promising to slash policies on electric vehicles and wind energy? Trump's approach to business leaders totally ignores the responsibility of the U.S. government to regulate business and protect consumers. And we're witnessing in real time now the corrosive effect of unchecked corporate power and wealth. There are laws in place, most effectively antitrust laws, that are meant to be a check on the consolidation of wealth and power. Those laws were wielded to great effect by the Federal Trade Commission in the 3.5 years that Lina Khan chaired the agency. She sued Amazon for being a monopoly and investigated Microsoft for abusing its market power. She blocked the merger of grocery giants Kroger's and Albertsons. She stopped mergers at NVIDIA, Lockheed Martin, and HCA Healthcare. She took action against companies like Grubhub and Lyft for misleading workers. She sued pharmacy benefit managers for artificially inflating the price of insulin.
That's quite a resume. And whoever said, you know, they're concerned with all these tech oligarchs. I mean, this is exactly how you check their power, is through actions like Linda Khan took. Of course, Trump's FTC folks are, you know, she's gone now. So whoever he put there is, or whoever's there is certainly not going to do this. But this is the way forward, in my opinion.
The aggressive antitrust position made Lina Khan very unpopular on Wall Street. But it was some of the most robust consumer protection from the FTC in decades. And Lina Khan, the former chair of the Federal Trade Commission, joins me now. Thank you for being with us.
Great to be with you.
I just want to underscore this point. In many cases,
How old is she? She looks so young. Linda Khan. What? She's 35? That's crazy. Damn. She's 3 years older than me, and she's already been the head of the chair of the Federal Trade Commission. That's crazy. Wow. She got a law degree from Yale, too. Damn, there's some smart-ass people in this world.
The things you were doing were laws that were on the books, meant to protect Americans, that were simply not enforced in previous administrations in some cases.
That's right. The antitrust laws go all the way back to 1890, the Sherman Antitrust Act, and then we had the Clayton Act and the FTC Act in 1914. And these laws were really about wanting to make sure that we had an economy that was competitive, that was fair, where people could get a fair shake, but ultimately also about wanting to make sure that our democracy was being protected from unchecked concentrations of economic power and fundamentally from oligarchy. And so these are laws that have been around for decades. Starting in the Reagan administration, there was a real pivot a pretty radical shift away from enforcing the laws faithfully. And so we saw decades of unchecked consolidation, monopolization that has really harmed Americans, has made them poorer, has allowed companies to charge people more while paying them less, squeezing out small businesses, reducing innovation, and really hollowing out communities. And so it was a great honor to get to chair the
We need Lena Khan. We need her to run for president.
The Federal Trade Commission and really be focused on reinvigorating all of the tools that Congress gave us.
Let's just talk about competition.
I wonder what she's doing now. I wonder if her Wikipedia page says. I mean, she just left, like, within, like, I don't think it has anything on what she's doing now. She left, like, literally a month ago to the day, so.
When businesses are able to get too big, it squeezes out the ability of new people to enter. So the Silicon Valley is a great example of that. A lot of these massive companies they were little startups started in people's garages and things like that. But in fact, the unchecked power of Silicon Valley wealth means it's much harder for that to replicate itself. Little small competitors can't compete against the big players.
That's right. I mean, I had the chance to go out to Silicon Valley several times, met with founders and startups that want to be the next great big company, but all too often found that existing monopolization and the existing gatekeepers were making it extraordinarily difficult for them to fairly compete. And what that means is that if you have startups that
Jay Carrion says, I'm tired of tech. Me too. Like, there's no doubt that it's a tough debate. Like, there's no doubt that a lot of tech companies have changed our world for the better. But I also feel like a lot of them have gotten so much power, so much influence, and made so much money off of bullshit. Like, I really honestly believe that if we never had Facebook, we would have probably been better off as a society.
That are taking that risk and have the talent to introduce the next great idea, unless our markets are open and fair, they're never going to be able to succeed. And that's really just deeply antithetical to what has made America's economy so strong.
So no one's going to have trouble understanding the fact that if they're monopolies, you probably pay more for a service. What I think is a little more abstract is how is the concentration of wealth, how does it undermine democracy? Clearly, we're watching some of that happen right now, but how do you articulate that? What's the danger of having too much concentration of wealth as it relates to a healthy democracy?
So the founders and those who really were formative in passing the original antitrust laws were really concerned that if you allow unchecked concentrations of economic power, that undermines people's liberties in a really fundamental way. And if what we care about in America is wanting to make sure people have freedom, that we're protecting them from the arbitrary exercise of power, that means we need to have checks and balances in our sphere of government. But it also means that we need checks and balances in our commercial sphere. Because if you have a democracy in name, but are allowing people to be bullied and coerced and pushed around by monopolists.
Unfortunately, I think America has really failed on this in general. I mean, if you just look at, it's not just the tech takeover, but the corporate takeover of the 80s and 90s. I mean, essentially, that killed all mom and pop shops, all sort of independent businesses. So, you start with the corporate takeover that killed, and there should have been more of these checks and balances when that was happening, but there weren't. So that killed mom and pop style economy. Then the corporations took over, and then they got killed by their own tactics, by the big tech folks. If you think about like J.C. Penney, Sears, etc., all these places that initially put all these mom and pop shops out of business, then they were taken out of business by big tech. And because we didn't have these checks and balances, like she was saying, properly enforced,
that really is going to undermine how people experience freedom in their day-to-day lives. There was a great quote where
Aspie Third Eye says, it's our dollars which make monopolies possible. Just stop buying their shit, literally and figuratively. I mean, I just don't know if that's a realistic strategy, Because for that to work, you'd have to get millions and millions of people behind that ideology, and I just don't know if that's possible.
Senator Sherman said, if we overthrew a monarch, we didn't do that just to be ruled by autocrats of trade. And so there was a real idea that protecting real liberty and democracy meant needing rules, not just in our sphere of government, but also in how we structure the economy.
Obviously, under the Biden administration, the FTC was very aggressive under your leadership. But it's not actually a completely partisan thing. You had some allies, some Republican allies. There are still a number of Republicans who think that America is better if businesses do face some degree of regulation.
This is what Ivy League universities you can get into with a...
Shush.
That's right. I've been really struck by the degree to which people on both sides of the aisle are extremely skeptical of monopolies, of unchecked corporate power. I had the chance in my job at the FTC to travel across the country, meet with farmers in Iowa or pharmacists in Kansas City or gig drivers from Minneapolis. And all of them were really struggling with the ways that corporations, when they're not checked by the rules, can abuse their power and really harm people fundamentally. I would get letters from people saying, I'm a lifelong Republican, but the FTC's rule to eliminate non-compete clauses is the best thing the government has done in my life. And so I think there is a real organic hunger from people who want to see their government fighting back against corporate lawbreaking. And that's what we did at the FTC.
Where are we now? Because in all the noise about what's going on in Washington and DOJ, in fact, some of the rules and some of the determinations you made as chair of FTC are still in place. It hasn't been dismantled. I don't know whether to end that with a yet or not. Where do you think we're going?
Well, look, it's too early to know. And of course, it's been extraordinarily alarming to see the dismantling of agencies like the CFPB, which have been such critical partners to the FTC. But you're right. I mean, look, there were lawsuits against big tech that were started in the first Trump administration. And then in the Biden administration, we kind of picked up that baton and kept going. And so I think you're definitely going to see some areas where now
Trump was against big tech when he thought they were against him. Now that they're lining up behind him, he's changed his tune.
That we're back in the Trump administration, we're going to see some of that activity continue as well. But I do get the sense that there is a real factional debate between the more populist wing and the more oligarchic wing, and we're going to have to see how things shake out.
And this becomes very important right now because, in fact, if you look at things like the Edelman Trust Barometer, Americans actually trust businesses more than they trust government or media. But I don't believe that businesses are going to come to our rescue in this particular instance. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm being, I'm exaggerating. But I think businesses get what they want when they say they don't want regulation. If the administration promises them we will not regulate you, they win.
Well, look, at the FTC, we actually heard from a lot of small and independent businesses that were also feeling squeezed by the monopolists. Yes. And so I do think it's a fairly small band of incumbents and monopolists and dominant firms that want to make sure that the rules are rigged so that others can't get ahead. And you absolutely need the laws enforced and to have a cop on the beat to make sure we're not seeing predation and cheating.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good interview, just about the economy, inequality, oligarchs, tech, antitrust, monopolies. Oh, what the heck? Just a lot of spammers in the chat today. Tigra, I see you talking smack about me. You say I don't know anything. Look, I might not know a lot, but I'm trying to learn, and that's what's important, right? So I don't think any human knows everything on Earth, and I'm certainly willing to admit I don't either. But I like to use this platform as a place to talk, to learn, to research, to have fun. Yeah, I'm pro Lena Khan, sorry, not Cohn. I wonder what, as I said, her plans are for the future. Oh, she teaches at Columbia? Interesting. like, to me, she just doesn't strike me as a politician. And maybe she's better off not being a politician. She's better off in like a role like the FTC chair. But I really like her ideas. Oh, T-Girl says, no, Sam. I'm saying I already saw that. Oh, okay. Well, I apologize if you already saw that. I just think it's an important thing to share. She went to Williams. Did she? Yes, she did. That's a good school. She went to Williams and Yale. That's a pretty good lineup. Oh, she was born in the UK. Interesting. Abraham Lincoln or Franklin Roosevelt? I like Abe. He's my favorite. Sam, do you support free speech, not spamming, but actual speech in the chat? On Lichtman Live, your moderator put me in timeout for just expressing my opinion. Do you not accept opposing views? Yes. If you're just if that's an issue, I'll talk to them. I do want people to express themselves, even if it's opposing. If you're trolling or saying bad words or stuff like, yeah, we're gonna block you. But no, I'm fully open to anybody's opinion or perspective. DJ says, I don't understand why MAGA is destroying vaccine science, especially with bird flu coming as a potential threat. COVID definitely hurt Trump in 2020. Did they learn nothing? That's a really good point. Yeah, I mean, it's like, bro, a pandemic literally ruined your presidency, and now you're just doubling down on that? I agree. It doesn't make any logical sense. Anthony, one of our mods, says, Kyle, you were being argumentative. I don't time out unless I see a pattern. Okay. Sam, can we do a movie night to watch The Third Man? Oh, that would be great. I don't think I can watch movies on YouTube, but that would be fun. We got our one Twitch watcher, Louis Adventures. George Jones says, are we at a point where the only hope to save democracy is for military to arrest Trump and Musk before Hexas fires the generals and admirals? No, I don't think so. Again, hopefully they'll be gone in 4 years and we can recover. It's going to take a long time to recover. I don't deny that, but Savannah, if you're watching, can we try to get her on my dad's channel? That'd be, if you're watching, I think she would be a really good guest. Educate to free us says another pandemic is coming. Well, I mean, the bird flu is already here. I don't know if that's what you mean. I mean, it doesn't affect us in terms of our direct health, but it does affect, our food supply and stuff. James says Trump probably would have won in 2020 if it were not for COVID. Yeah, probably. Sam, I don't like the rhetoric some of the Democrats have been using. I've seen a lot of people with democracy is over, Trump is king. I don't know why it drives me nuts, but the messaging is grim. Yeah, I agree. It's grim. Yeah, again, I don't know. We were kind of talking about this on Lickman Live. My dad was like, we need this person to stand up and sound a 5-alarm fire. It's like, is that really what we need? I feel like we've got so many people, I don't think that's the issue. You know what I mean? It's like, how long are we going to do the same thing over and over and over again before we're like, wait, this isn't working, right? It's like, Trump is bad. Democracy's ending. Let's raise a 5-alarm fire. It's like, we've been doing that, whoever said it, for 10 years, and he's still here. Sam, do you have an email I can send you that Vox article? Yes, it's lichtman.sam@gmail.com. Watch the video Dark Gothic MAGA, How Tech Billionaires Plan to Destroy America. I don't have the stomach for it right now, unfortunately. I don't see another Democrat winning as president for a long time. They pander too much to a side that doesn't align with everyday majority Americans. I don't know. It's way, way too soon to say, Democrat can't win in 2028. That's my opinion. Comic Fan says, Elon Musk said there is fraud in Medicare and Medicaid. Okay. Says a lot of things. Doesn't mean they're all true. Rich says nothing works. Their propaganda is too strong. Conspiracy nuts. I'm not going to go to say that nothing works, but I agree. Their propaganda is too strong. And again, how long do we have to see a pattern of behavior for anti-Trump people for us to be like, wait, this isn't working, guys? Sounding a 5-alarm fire, talking about threats to democracy. I'm not saying we shouldn't do that or that shouldn't have been done, but at some point we have to figure out something that works better. People learn through small increments of personal change or trauma. I guess that's true, but they didn't learn from 2020. They didn't see how terribly Trump handled the pandemic. Again, there's this weird thing in politics where people seem to give this blanket excuse for Trump and the pandemic. It's like, yeah, well, Trump's presidency didn't end very well, but he had to deal with a global pandemic. Yes, but he handled it as bad as you possibly can. And don't we judge good leaders based on how they handle adversity? What about Elon finding that Social Security was being paid out to 150-year-old people? I'm pretty sure that was just some sort of coding error, that it was not real. I would look that up on your own, but I'm pretty sure that's what people found, that was not the reality of the situation. Again, he was just going with it, and there wasn't a whole lot of truth behind it. In Your Face New Yorker says, yeah, they managed to brainwash a bunch of parents into thinking that they'll send their daughters to school and she'll come home and say, my teacher said I should be a boy. Yeah, I think that's true too. There was a lot of fear mongering around trans issues and just LGBTQ issues, generally speaking. I totally agree with that. Sean Gardner says, people literally saw him inspire in an insurrection based on nonsense and still voted for him. If that didn't persuade them, nothing we say will matter. That's a very, very fair point, Sean. And I think I've said that before. It's like, I think I've said that before. Like, if that didn't, and it's not just January 6th. Like, I agree. Like, January 6th is very important. But, like, we're talking about months and months, if not years, of Trump before January 6th undermining our election process, telling people that the election was rigged, telling people that the election was stolen, right? So January 6th was the culmination of all that. But it's easy for people to muddy the waters around January 6th. Oh, he didn't actually instruct them to storm the Capitol. Oh, XYZ. But you cannot deny the fact that President Trump, for months, if not years before the election, even in 2016, he was saying, oh, I would have won by bigger if it weren't for XYZ fraud. And we're talking about a man who led the biggest campaign, just vocal campaign, to undermine elections ever in the history of the United States. That's a fact. And again, people still voted for that shit. So this whole idea of like, if you inflict trauma, people will learn. Really? I don't know. He didn't immediately try to stop them either. All right, I'm not going to get into January 6th, but like whether he did, he didn't, he did this, he did that. I'm just saying that even before January 6th, we're talking about a single man who made the largest and loudest opposition to free and fair elections we've ever seen in the United States, and that's a fact. Saying we can do a movie night if the movie's in public domain. That might be cool. Right-wing propaganda is much more potent than left-wing propaganda, but why? Like, I agree that that right-wing propaganda, especially online, has become more potent, but why? Like, I don't think there's anything that makes it any more potent than left-wing. I don't know. Maybe you know. Master says, I hate their talking points. Well, 70 million voted for Trump. Yeah, the vote for cheaper eggs home and a better economy. So far, they're showing nothing for it. Gregor says, Trump was in Russia with his wife in 1987 to 89 and had contacts with the KGB. Moreover, in 2008, gangster and Russian money saved his business. There are many articles, including American ones. Yeah, I mean, this whole idea that, obviously, right, more propaganda, the whole Russia things is a hoax. It's not a hoax. I mean, maybe the Mueller report didn't, and the Mueller report is so flawed. I mean, we could go on and on about that. But the idea that, this whole Russia thing is a hoax is just, again, just more propaganda. Louise Adventures over on Twitch says, Sam, Dems will win in 2028. I feel it in my bones. All right. So we got some hopeful folks out there, folks. Right-wing propaganda depends on stoking fears. Yeah, I guess that's, again, I mean, yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's just that the right wing is willing to go to that level. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, there could be left-wing propaganda that stokes fears too, right? That's not solely a right-wing thing necessarily. People didn't actually read the Mueller report. That's true too, yeah. And the Mueller report did say that there was obstruction of justice by Trump. So that too, right? But nobody wants to talk about that. My dad knows more about the Mueller report than me, but he says it. I mean, it was just a total disaster. Rich says, there's only one way to win. It is to convince the right-wing people that Trump is a part of the elite they hate so much. I don't even know if that's true. Like, they know that. I mean, everybody knows that. It's not like a secret. Lee says, I'm not sure if there will be elections in 2 years. Oh, God. In your first New Yorker says, there is far left propaganda, but the left is so divided that there aren't enough extremists to rise to power. That's a good point. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, the right has just succumbed to fear-mongering, to extremism. Democrats haven't, right? And like, yeah, there is plenty of crazy left-wing propaganda, but the Democratic Party has, for the most part, avoided that. And I think that's a good thing overall. The Republican Party hasn't, and maybe that's worked to their advantage. That's not a good thing, right? Propaganda is not good. Fear-mongering is not good. What's the left propaganda? Tell me. I don't know. I can't think of it. I'd have to do some research on it, and I'm too tired to do it. Do you think Bernie Sanders could have beaten Trump in 24? Even Harris wasn't really as vocal as he is about many issues. I don't know. It's an impossible question to try to answer. Freddie says, Sam, your dismissive attitude about election interference is an example of how we got here. What exactly is my dismissive attitude towards election interference? I said I think we have fair elections, which I do believe. Do I think Russia tries to put their finger on the scale? Yes. Do I think, again, there are policies and laws being put into place to make it hard to vote? Yes. I don't think I'm undermining anything, but maybe I am. I don't know. Sam, do you think Trump will take the U.S. out of NATO? I don't know. Not really, but it is getting really sketchy. Brennan thinks there will be elections in 2026, right? If Biden didn't screw this country, Trump may not have won the election. How did Biden exactly screw the country? I'd be interested to hear what you mean by that. Biden is the reason we have Trump. Explain yourself, please. The border. That's your evidence? I'm not buying it. Thank you, Jeanette, for the $5 donation. Do I think immigration was an important factor in this election? Yes. Do I think the Biden administration handled immigration well? No, not necessarily. But I think Biden on paper through his policies did a lot of good for this country. I think that Trump won because the economy was still reeling. While Biden did a lot to try to fix the economy after the pandemic, he just didn't have enough time to fully see the benefits of that. I don't know. I just get so I get so frustrated. I get frustrated when, is inflation Trump's fault right now? I don't know. It feels just so frustrating that we can't have a genuine debate about what is actually the president's fault and what is not the president's fault, right? For example, COVID. I believe, yes, there's no doubt it's a global pandemic. It affected every country, but Trump did not handle that well, right? And then when Biden came into office, he inherited a global pandemic on top of Trump's mishandling. So he had a lot to clean up. And I believe that the Biden administration, on paper, through policy, did a lot of good things to try to clean up that mess. But unfortunately, the American people blamed Biden for that mess, even though, in my opinion, it was actually the fault of the Trump administration. And people are so quick to look at an event happening and blame the current president. For example, when Trump came into office, he inherited a great economy from Obama. And all these right-wingers say, remember when Trump first came into office, the first 2 years, 3 years, whatever, it was so great. It's yes, he was president during that time, but what did he do policy-wise, concretely, that made the economy better in that period of time? I would say that was all done concretely during the Obama administration. I also believe that, I don't think Trump has done anything to fix inflation, but I think the current inflation right now is not necessarily his fault. It is the fault of a transition of power from an administration that was working on it to them dropping everything they were working on and the transition to a new administration. If in next few months we're still facing inflation and Trump and his team has not done anything concretely to address that, then I'm okay, now it's time to blame Trump. I'm just so tired of people saying, event happens during this president, therefore it is this president's fault. That's just such an annoying and wrong way to look at politics and the president. And I wish we would look at more concrete things. Trump 45 didn't ruin the economy. I think COVID did. Again, I think I was pretty clear on this. When Biden took over, he was Trump was dealing with a global pandemic. Agree. That radically hurt the economy. But Trump was leader of the most powerful country in the world. He fumbled the ball in the pandemic, which made the disaster, economic, social disaster around COVID escalate even more. So let's say COVID hits, right? It causes this much damage with a good president in office. COVID hits, plus you compound that with Trump's mishandling. Now we're at level 9 or 10 in terms of damage, right? So yes, I agree. Like this much of the damage is unavoidable no matter who is president, right? But that last 5 points from level 5 to level 10, I believe rests on the shoulder of our leader. And I believe that the economy was still hurting at the time of the election. People looked at Joe Biden. They said, "You're president and I am still hurting, so I will not vote for you." Unfortunately, again, we're talking about messaging behind the Democrats. Unfortunately, I don't think enough people knew about a lot of the actions of the Biden administration. And because of that, they just said, "Hey, I'm not doing well economically. I'm out." And I think, as we've talked about before, I think the economic numbers that we were getting were not very good because they are not up to date and they don't have certain filters that would make them more accurate. Sean Gardner says 2.5 to 3% inflation is not historically significant. Also, Trump's 2020 deal with OPEC was what caused gas prices to soar and hurt us in 2021, 2022. Right. But I guarantee you poll voters, 95 to 98% of them will have no idea what this 2020 deal with OPEC was, right? And that's the issue. Our country ebbs and flows with the concrete decisions or lack of decisions sometimes made by our leaders. But our electorate doesn't have the time or the energy or the whatever it might be to get that deep, right? So they just look at the economy. Who's leading us? Do I like the economy? No. That guy's leading us. Don't want him anymore. And I hear your point about inflation not being that high, but there are other factors at play like affordability, rent, housing, things that are really not good in America. And they're not Biden's fault. I don't even necessarily think they're Trump's fault. They're the fault of policies probably from the 70s and 80s that have brought us to this point, right? In terms of why inequality is so bad, why we have this insane affordability crisis in this country. But unfortunately, just the way it works is whoever's in that office gets the blame. Sorry, that was a long rant. I wasn't really looking at the chat. Thumbs up if you agree, thumbs down if you disagree with what I'm saying. Essentially what I'm saying is the Biden administration was doomed. They were in too big of a hole to recover enough in 4 years for the American people to be like, yeah, I'm good economically. Let's move forward. Okay, I'm seeing mostly thumbs up. I like that. I also think, generally speaking, that we put too much economic, I don't know what the right word would be. We put too much economic reliance on the president. I mean, the president no doubt has a ton of power when it comes to the economy, but our economy is such a complex, complicated thing that is determined by the private sector, the public sector, Congress, the presidency, judges. I mean, it's like the fact that we put all the onus and all on the president. I mean, essentially the president has now become the economist in chief. I mean, it's supposed to be the commander in chief. Most people now base their presidential vote on the economy, which is kind of crazy to me because it's like there's not that much of a one-to-one correlation between the president and our economy. And again, policies, decisions, and that were made 20, 30 years ago are still affecting us today and have ripple effects throughout time. You know what I mean? I swear to God, it's like we're living in a country where now our president is like the economist in chief. And that's ridiculous to me. Especially given the fact that I don't think we've ever had a president who really knows economics that well. Democrats outperformed massively in 22 and 23 despite record high inflation. So how can you say it was the economy that killed in 24? That's why it was disinformation. That's a good point. My stance about the economy, it is a little strange when you look at 23 and 24. I agree with that. I can't quite explain that. That is a good point. Sam, it sounds like you were saying the Dem Party still would have lost if Biden didn't drop out. I don't know. Yeah, I'm saying that. Yeah, I'm saying if Biden stayed in, there's still a high possibility that they lose, in my opinion. Yeah, I don't know how to account for the Democrats' success in 23 and 22. Because maybe the only thing that would, again, line up with my line of reasoning is that people wanted to give them more of a chance, and by 2024 they're like, all right, 4 years, I'm still not doing that well, you're out. Where 2 years in, they were like, hey, let's give Dems power, maybe they can make changes. They didn't see enough changes, they still felt underwater economically, and like, all right, you guys are out. Freddie says, because the election was rigged. That would explain it. Yeah, if the election was rigged, that would explain it. I don't think the election was rigged, but that would help solve a lot of questions about what we're all thinking. Sam, you got to Google Greg Palast. I have a stream where I went through Greg Palast. I don't remember which one it is, but you have to go back and watch it. Generally, my point was, he throws out a lot of numbers without that are logically a little confusing, and he structures them or bases them in things that don't line up throughout his piece. I'm just a little skeptical. I'm not saying he's wrong or he's right. Just when I read it, it didn't read to me like, wow, this is so clear and so, I just was like, there's some weird stuff in here that I'm not quite getting. Colitapal says, the right rigged the election through our media. How so? Greg Palast is using his data in courts to win lawsuits, but doesn't win them all. I don't disagree with his general thesis that, especially in a state like Georgia, there was these crazy new laws that were kicking people off the ballot. Was it enough people to change the election? I don't know. And I'm not ruling it out. I'm not saying he's wrong. I haven't seen enough to be like convinced. Will Lichtman's keys still work in 2028? I don't know. If it's confusing, interview Greg. Don't disregard everything because you don't know the details. It's not that I don't know the details. It's that I read it and it was not, and the way he wrote was unclear in my mind. There's Kiko, and I'm happy to have him on. I think we reached out to him, but I'm not sure. I'll double check on that. Picking your brain is fun. You are very patient like your dad. Thank you. I appreciate that. Again, my whole point in doing all this is that I'm not here to tell you that what I dislike about a lot of political talking heads and YouTube streamers is that they sit there and they tell you what to think. And they're like, I'm right about this. I'm right about that. And this is what you should think. I prefer more of a discussion. Obviously, I share my opinion, but it is just that. I remember one of the big things, to be a little bit more concrete, about Greg Palast is that he was saying that the federal something elections commission said that he got these numbers of like these millions of voters purged from this. I forgot what the commission or the agency is called from the federal election. I forgot what it's called. X commission, right? And then later in the piece, he says, I don't have these numbers yet from X commission because they don't release them for like years. So I'm like, how did you get this number? He said like something like 4 million people were purged off their voter rolls based on numbers from X organization. Then later in the piece, he says X organization won't publish numbers from 2024 until like a year, 2 years after the election. So I'm like, I'm so confused. You've just contradicted yourself. Is my dog a golden doodle? He's an Australian Labradoodle, which means he's a third Cocker Spaniel, a third Poodle, and a third Labrador Retriever. Chris Taylor says, I think the core Democratic base in the urban areas did show up in the numbers, or didn't show up. I'm not sure what you're saying. They did show up in numbers as in 2020 and 2022. We clearly see the numbers were not there election night. Yeah, I think that's a big question that nobody has really answered. Again, there's tons of speculation about it. But yeah, why didn't all these people who normally vote Dem show up? Because yeah, I talked about this too. And we've talked about this on the show. Trump essentially did the same he did in 2020. He was up a percentage point or something, and Harris was way down from Biden's 2020 numbers. Was that simply an effect of COVID and people were desperate during COVID and they weren't as desperate to vote during 2024? Maybe. Was that the Gaza situation? Maybe. Although it seems like that number, that drop-off number, is too high to strictly be from Gaza. But yeah, I don't think anybody knows definitively why there was such a drop-off in numbers. And the right wing says, well, that just proves that Biden cheated. Actually, the rise from Hillary to Biden in terms of percentage was not as high as other elections in the past. So that was the trend the Democrats were going on, actually. Why was there such a big dip? And there's been bigger dips, too, percentage-wise, too. But it was still a big dip. My dad recently... we got another Twitch viewer. Let's go to YouTube real quick. This is from TNJ something. My dad recently called a peaceful protest a riot. Your thoughts? There used to be a police officer who voted for Trump. Protest was about Allan doing all he's doing. I'm not sure what your question is. This is from Substaneous. The problem for me is the amount of votes every year except for 2020 is way closer. The problem for me is the amount of votes every year except for 2020 is way closer. I have to double check on that. I'm not sure. I don't think that's necessary. I think there's been the amount of votes. You mean like from like 2008 to 2012, the total amount of votes between those two elections was very close, and in 2020 the total number jumped up really high. Is that what you're saying? That may be the case. I'm not sure. I'd have to look deeper into that exactly. And again, we have to think about percentages too, because obviously population changes. From what I did on my analysis, it didn't seem like a crazy anomaly to me. The jump and the decrease was pretty big, but not the biggest ever, right? We've had bigger drops and we've had bigger jumps. So to me, that wasn't the anomaly necessarily. It wasn't like, whoa, the anomaly is the jump itself. It's like, not necessarily, no. To me, the anomaly is more just like, why, not anomaly, but the question is, why did Harris not get so many votes that Joe Biden did? Every first world nation audits their votes to show transparency. Why didn't Harris ask for voter recount? I think just because after 2020 and Trump's craziness around the election, she didn't even want to put out a perception that she was mimicking that. I think that's my guess. Basic Politics says, yo, I had no idea you did a post show. This is lit. How does nobody know? I say it every week. How does people not know I have a post show? Let me see if I can get up the analysis I did. It's not fully. I stopped doing it at a certain point because it's not. They were still counting votes while I was doing it, so it's not like totally accurate, but it still shows the general like. I can't remember what this showed now. You guys would have to go back to the. Okay. So here, I got it. I think I'm starting to remember now. Give me a second. Oh, I see people have sent me some emails. I'll try to look at those in a second. All right, here we go. Let me see if I can get this up here. Okay, that works. All right. So this was the analysis I did. Again, it's not done because I was doing this like right after the election. So not 100% accurate, but it gives you like an over idea of what was happening, right? So like in 2000, from 96 to 2000, the Republicans jumped up 22%, right? From 2016 to 2020, Democrats jumped up 18.9%. So the idea that this is some sort of, and people just show totals, right, to show that this election was an anomaly. The fact that this jump is an anomaly is not true, because even in 2000 there was a bigger jump, and in 2004 between both W. Bush elections there was an 18% jump, right? The anomaly is the decrease in votes, because if you look at decrease in votes, there's only a 3% drop and a 5% drop between elections, right? And this is also between candidates of the same party. So between 2000 and 96, there was a 22% jump, and for the Republican candidate, a 7% jump. For the Democrat, between 2000. So this is like comparing blue to blue, red to red, right? So the anomaly isn't this election, because again, we see here and we see in 2020. You guys can't see my cursor, can you? Damn it. Oh no, you can't. Can you see my cursor? And yes, I made this by myself, guys. So isn't that impressive? Can you guys see my cursor? No. I don't know why. Should be able to. I don't know why you can't see it. That's annoying. It says it should be selected. Let me try something else. Okay, no cursor. But my point is, if you look at the 2020 election, it is not actually an anomaly. It is actually fairly consistent with the elections of 2000 and 2004, which you can see at the bottom of the chart. So the anomaly is actually the decrease in votes in 2024. That's as you can see there, like that's the outlier in all of this. We see similarities between 2000, 2004, and 2020. The minus 14.6% drop, and again, that's lower. It's probably more like 10% now. But still, even if it's 10%, it's double 2012, which was the biggest we've seen in 24 years. Why isn't it showing my cursor? Let me see if this... No. Can I draw on this? Oh, yeah. Okay. That works. Does it work? It's frustrating. What in the French toast? Sorry. I'm trying to figure out how to... Here we go. All right, that's better. So, 2022 or 2020, 22% increase in 2000, an 18% increase between 2000 and 2004, and between 2016 and 2020, we saw an 18.9% increase. Oh, you guys can't see the bottom of the screen. God damn it. God, I'm really screwing this up. Let's do that again. So, I didn't put 96 on this election because I just want to show the last 24 years, right? Between 96 and 2000, among the Republican candidate, there was a 22% increase. Between 2000 and 2004, between both George W. Bush, there was an 18% increase. Again, this is in total number of votes. 2016 to 2020, there was an 18.9% increase. Again, not an anomaly because we have two other examples of that in the last 24 years. But in 2020 to 2024, we saw a negative, again, it's not quite this high. so I didn't go back and change it. Let's say 10 to 14% decrease, which is a huge anomaly, right? There's no other election in 24 years that have seen this kind of drop off. Substantious on Twitch. Does that make sense? I guess the numbers are just bigger, so it seems bigger than others. Right. You have to account the fact that you can't just look at numbers. You have to look at the percentages, because the numbers are going to be vastly different from 2000 and 2020, right? Coletta Powell says, it's almost like there was massive voter fraud. Maybe. Bettina says, I think it's an excellent chart and I make charts for a living. Wow. Thank you, Bettina. Hey, if anybody, share this chart. Feel free to clip this video, share this chart, and explain to people where the real anomaly is here. Because again, we're not looking at total numbers. Percentages are much more indicative. You have to look at percentages because for a lot of reasons, just how population evolves over time, et cetera, et cetera. The really weird one is this one. And again, this is not a correct number. I should go back and but it's really high. It's, 10 to 14%. I still don't know why this happened. Could it be voter suppression? Maybe. Could it be rigging of election? I don't think so, but it's possible. Could it be Gaza? Seems unlikely. Could it be COVID, the lack thereof COVID? Maybe. But I don't have that's my point, is I don't have a good explanation for this. I don't have a good explanation for this. Voter suppression is different than rigged. Yes, I believe so. When I'm thinking about rigging, I'm thinking more of I agree they're very similar, but just in my mind, when I'm thinking about rigging, I'm thinking about people claiming that Elon Musk tampered with the voting machines or something, or Republicans or MAGA people in 2020 thinking about Dominion doing something with voting machines. That to me is rigging an election, and voter suppression is something else, which is more, I think, in line with what Greg Palast is arguing, that there was some sort of mass throw off based off of some new law that took a bunch of votes off the table. Beth Brown says, remember right before the election, Trump was glib and smug about how he and Elon have a secret, and he was so certain he was going to win? That was suspicious, says Beth Brown. I agree, that was suspicious. But suspicion does not equal guilt necessarily. And the thing about the difference between rigging and voter suppression is voter suppression has been around all throughout American history. Back to Jim Crow, back to, it's always happening. Rigging is, I think, a whole nother beast. What's my definition of voter suppression? Creating new laws that make it harder for people with legitimate right to vote to vote. That's just what I came off at the top of my head. I don't, take that for what you will. Would PA have gone blue if Shapiro was Harris's VP? I have no idea. Again, sometimes you guys ask like impossible questions to answer. And again, I don't want to be that kind of guy who comes, who's a streamer, who's like, I have all the answers and I'm always right. It's like, bro, sometimes these questions are just too hard. I have no clue. I can, like, even when I try to like just check in my gut on that, I can't. It's hard to get an answer. Do I think illegal immigrants have a right to vote? My answer to that at this moment in time, without doing a ton of research on it, is no. Secretary of State Andrews says, Sam, not one county flipped to Harris. Even in Ronald Reagan's 49 state landslide, some counties flipped to Mondale. That's extremely fishy. Again, like, fishiness and suspicion can only get you so far. I would need something more concrete than that. Michael Yu says, need an audit. Yeah, I would be open to that. I don't think it's going to happen unless there's something, they're really working hard behind the scenes and we're about to get some big bombshell that, like, the Harris campaign or some sort of Dem organization or, somebody's been working and they're ready to go for an audit. But I feel like something that would leak to the press. So I wouldn't get that hopeful about it. Let me see if I can bring up the spreadsheet I was using to make this chart. Try to update it with better numbers so we can get a better... Is this it? Yeah, this is it. Oops. Well, I just showed my Google Drive. Oh, well. So this is what I was using to do this analysis. Again, I don't really remember how I did it exactly. So let me see if I can update these numbers and see where they're at. Oh, I already did, and it already went down to like 10%. But still, again, a 10% loss is still pretty high. What's her? Let me see if I can get the final totals for this. 2024 presidential election. So he got 77,300,000 and whatever. 77 million. Is this Trump? Yes. Oh, God. Okay. So he went up 3.9%, which is decent, and it's much bigger than my chart initially gave him. So he went up 3.9%. And what was her total? 75 million. All right, and she went down 8%. So my initial 14% is off for sure. But still, again, so this is actually 8%, which is only 3% higher than the 5%, which makes it a little bit less of an anomaly, but it's still the largest deficit in 24 years. This is not the biggest increase in 24 years. This is the biggest drop in votes in 24 years at 8% or whatever I said it was. So I need to update this chart. So this actually should say minus 8.3%. 0.3%. And this should actually say plus 3.9%. So Trump did better than I said, and I mean they both did better than I said because again, when I did this, the election totals weren't all there. Oh, Canada won the match. But still, this is the biggest decrease at 8.3% in 24 years between percent change in vote between elections of candidates of the same party, minus 8.3%. Hope Sam saw it. Saw what? Saw what? So if you want to share this chart, this is a better chart to share because this is actually accurate numbers. Don't share it when I said share the last one. Don't share the last one. Share this one. Yes, I've seen the documentary by Greg Palast. I've seen it. So let's try this again. If you want to share this clip, between 2000 and 1996, I don't have 1996 on here just because there was a 22% increase in votes between elections of candidates of the same party, right? 18% increase between 2000 and 2004. People say that 2020 is the anomaly. It's not. There was only an 18.9% increase. In the last 24 years, the highest increase was 2000, from 1996 to 2000. The biggest anomaly on this chart is the minus 8.3% in 2024 from 2020 to 2024 between Biden and Harris. That is the outlier in the last 24 years. How did I do, folks? Is that a good quick explanation with the current numbers? Thumbs up if that was a good explanation. Thumbs down if not. All right, I got a thumbs up from Secretary of State Andrew. Kalita Powell says sort of. God damn it. Okay, Michael Nightwolf said yes. Damn, Knowledge is Power says I have insomnia disorder and I feel primed for sleep now. Damn, it was that boring? I just think this is an important chart for people to understand what the hell happened, or at least try to wrap their heads around the reality of what happened and then understand what could have happened to make this the reality. Coca-Cola says it's interesting and shows that Kamala was historically bad. Yes, it does. Do we know why she was historically bad? You might have some reasons. Can you add icons to the years where either Dem or Republican president was in office? I don't want to make it too confusing because it's not really about who wins or loses. This chart is really just to show like what is happening between elections in terms of percentage of the vote. Freddie says, I saw a data analyst making the same point earlier today in Roland Martin's channel. Okay. So if a data analyst is saying something similar, then this probably can't be too far off, right? James says, people wanted something different, even if it's Trump. But Trump's not different. Trump was already president. Maybe you could argue that people wanted a Washington outsider, and Trump represented that. Even though he was president, he still represented this outside force from Washington, and he still represented that in 2024. Maybe that's more accurate to say. We need to figure out, this is the key. We need to figure out why this happened. Sorry. Why did this happen? We know it happened. Now why? I saw someone said because Kamala was just a bad candidate. I don't necessarily think that's true. My dad, I don't think would think that's true. I think he would say candidates don't matter that much in terms of elections, right? There's only one key that deals with candidates, and that's the charisma keys. A lot of people are saying it was pure disinformation and disinformation. Knowledge is power says there's too many factors. I hear that too. Yeah, like maybe her -8, -2% was Gaza, -2% was disinformation, Yeah, there's probably. Peter Collingswood said she was a DEI hire. Get over it. Oh my God, that's the stupidest talking point. You're telling me a woman who went to law school, graduated law school, became the attorney general of the biggest state in the union, became a senator from the biggest state in the union, was a DEI hire? Nah, bro, she earned that. She earned that. I was saying before the election that I remember saying this very clearly, that I was saying there is no way the American people are going to go back to Trump. After January 6th, after COVID, after all the court cases and rape trials, there was no, I was just certain, and I was confident in the American people that there was no way we were going to go back to Trump. The other thing to look at this chart too is that Trump himself increased 15% from 2016 to 2022. So this idea that only Biden, got this massive increase is not even true. Trump got a 15% increase. That's a huge increase. Wait a second. I think I might have made a mistake. Fuck, I keep making mistakes on this. I'm so pissed at myself right now. Hold on. Okay. I don't think I updated the total votes. So what is... What is... Oh, I fucked that up. No, I didn't fuck that up. Huh? No, I'm sorry, I haven't used this chart in a while, so I don't remember what I did with it. Okay, that's not the total amount of votes. Oh, that's the total amount of votes from Harris. Oh, right. Sorry. No, I didn't fuck it up. This is correct. Sorry. All right, ignore what I was saying. This is still the correct number, minus 8.3%. And the orange means that there was a major third. So there are other really big decreases in the last since the 1960, right? Oh, you guys aren't seeing this, are you? Or are you? Sam, not good with math. I'm not the greatest with math. I do like statistics, but I'm not the greatest with math. You can see like in 1980, 1968, 1992, there were bigger decreases. Like really big decreases. And there were big decreases in the past. But a lot of them were due to a major third party candidate getting over 5% of the vote. Oh, you guys aren't seeing this. I didn't realize this wasn't showing the full thing. All right. I don't know if you guys can see this section. It says major third party gets greater than 5% of the vote. So like in this election, this election, this election, this election, there was a third party getting more than 5% of the vote. And you can see that that really affects drop-offs in a great deal. Can you share this spreadsheet? I don't know if I want to share it, because then if people can edit it, they can just fuck it up. So interestingly, in terms of Democrats, since 1960, Harris had the lowest drop-off between elections. Right? The next biggest one is negative 7.1 in between 1968 and 1972. No, I know they can do math for you. I'm having it do math for me. I just thought, just forget it. I just confused myself about the structure of the spreadsheet. Can make it view only. All right, maybe I'll do that. Interestingly, Republicans have taken, I mean, obviously there was a major third-party candidate in this election, but a minus 25 dip in 92, minus 11 in between 84 and 88, minus 20 between 72 and 76. These are Republicans. Minus 25 between 1960 and 1964. So there have been bigger drop-offs than this, for sure, but they were a long time ago. That's the thing. And the biggest one that was non-third party that was bigger than this was, you have to go back to 1988. I mean, that's a pretty long time is what I'm trying to say. Here, let me see if I can share this real quick. All right. Here's the link. Anybody with that link can view it, I believe. Wow, there's a lot of people checking it out. Wow, that's cool. A lot of people checking it out. I can see them popping up here. If you see anything wrong with this, I think I haven't looked at this in a while, and I just updated the numbers for 2024. But if you see anything wrong, let me know. All right. I think with that, well, if you see, I'll just hang on for a second. If anybody sees any, I mean, email me or message me on Instagram at SammyLicht if you see anything wrong with this. I'm pretty sure it's accurate though. You know, people talk a lot about 2020. Like, you look at these two numbers and you do think like, wow, that is a big jump. But then if you look at these two numbers, like, that's a big freaking jump too. Again, 15% jump. All right, folks, I'm getting hungry. Wow, I've been going. I almost went for an hour 42. I think that's the longest post show ever. But I also think it was the biggest audience on the post show ever because of Savannah's smart idea. All right, folks. Hopefully you found this analysis interesting. Let me know if you have any questions, comments, concerns about it. Appreciate you all tuning in. Appreciate you all being a part of the community. Thank you. Good night.